Now, early this year, the government proposed to make Kiswahili mandatory in schools as the country continues to leverage on its position in East Africa, where the language is a regional lingua franca. So this afternoon, we would like to understand what it will take to make this a possibility in schools across the country. Now, to help us appreciate this, we have the KIU Vice Chancellor, Professor MOUHAMMAD MPEZAMIHIGO. Good afternoon, sir, and welcome to
Good afternoon, and thank you for hosting me this afternoon.
You're welcome. So for starters, I'd like you to give us an overview of how Kiswahili as a language is, operating in school, because it's not something new. While I was in school, I also did study Kiswahili. Right. Yes. So right. How are we doing so far?
I think you may even recall while you were undertaking Kiswahili,
yes,
if you didn't do it as a subject, it was casual and maybe you dropped it. Or
yeah, it was actually just senior 1 and senior 2.
Exactly, and then you dropped it. I think generally the uptake of Swahili language has not been as would have been if there were efforts to actually propel the interest, and also recognizing its importance. And it's not by accident, because there's some history to it. Previously, in the decades that passed, it was used, during the time of the British and the German colonization of the East African region. The only way they could communicate with the soldiers within the region was through Swahili. Swahili is actually about 40%, this is also disputed, 40% Arabic, and then the other African languages that make the 60%. So the British and the German tried their level best to, have a communication channel with the soldiers. So it was associated so much with, terrible things, panda gari, meaning you board the vehicle, piga risasi, shoot, fungua mlango, meaning that, open the door. So Swahili was really looked at, especially in the context of Uganda. Even when it was referred to as a language that was used by Amin soldiers.
Yeah, the army.
The army, Amin soldiers. Even when the Tanzanians came in the Liberation War, Tanzanians used more Swahili. So you find that it was linked so much. But now when it comes to the uptake, so many people really shunned away from the language.
The negative
attitude. Whereas the other East African countries, especially Kenya and Tanzania,
embraced it.
They embraced it. They use it as an official language. And recently we know that African Union has made it one of the official languages. The United Nations through UNESCO have gazetted 7th of July, as Kiswahili Language World Day. Yeah. So we'll be celebrating that. And Uganda, the cabinet has approved that. And also the curriculum has also been now made mandatory. And so we have lost, like a century. We are about 100 years behind all the other East African regions.
If you're to advise the Ministry of Education on how to make this happen, what would you tell them?
I mean, somebody seeing me here in the studio as a Vice Chancellor would be wondering. I think what we need to consider is anybody who is multilingual, and we have to get it from the lower levels of education up to university. If you're multilingual, first of all, you develop confidence. Acceptability is quite obvious. I mean, if I visited your community and I was even able just to greet and say hello in the local language, the reception you get is multiple. So Swahili being spoken by over 200 million people in Africa, I would advise the government of Uganda, to inject money in training teachers, getting materials, and us in universities, we should be able to mainstream Swahili as a language so that it's not only for passing, but being able to capacitate the graduates so that they are able to freely work within the East African region and other parts of Africa that use Swahili language.
Thank you so much, Professor. Well, I'll add to his voice and say that the future actually belongs to those who speak more than one language, because, I mean, there are so many opportunities that you could tap from out there, so do take the trouble to at least learn an extra language. Well, that wraps up our interview. We do take a break.